Hi guys, thanks for watching today's oil painting time-lapse and studio sessions episode 45. This year I'm getting a head start on holiday sales, so if you would like 20% off of your purchase of prints or stickers, go ahead and head over to my shop at www.happyd-artist.com and use the code Black Friday. Sale is valid until December 25th. Also, I will be listing all of the art materials used in today's video along with links to purchase them in the description below. I painted today's piece on a panel from Treacle Art Supplies, which is made of aluminum and primed with oil ground. I fell in love with its smooth surface, and if you're interested in getting some Treacle Art Supplies for yourself, you can use the 10% off code HAPPYD at treacle.com. Alright, it's time for the oil painting portion of the video. As you guys know, I am a huge lover of oil paint. It is my absolute favorite medium. There's nothing that comes close to just the richness and beauty of oil paint, in my opinion. And I wanted to take the time today to talk about an issue that is very near and dear to my heart, and that is why oil painting seems to be so intimidating for young or new artists. And as someone who has been through the following scenarios I'm about to list, I'm hoping that talking about it today can give some of you younger or newer artists out there watching this a little bit of confidence and courage to try oils, because I really want to share my love of oil paint with the world. I really hate the thought of people missing out on such an amazing medium just because of these stereotypes and stigmas against oil painting that may or may not even be true. So let's start from the very first reason why I think oil painting is so intimidating to new artists. I think most of us, when we first started out, we learned about famous artists and famous paintings when we're just little kids. Like, we've all heard of, Vincent van Gogh, Claude Monet, Leonardo da Vinci. Whether or not we've actually been to these huge art museums around the world, we've all at least seen or heard of famous paintings such as Starry Night or the Mona Lisa. And these artists are all oil painters, and these very famous pieces of art that are household names are also all done in oil paint. So, at least in my personal experience, when I was young and dreaming about becoming an artist and really developing an interest and passion in art, I always saw oil painting as a medium reserved exclusively for masters. All of these famous, worldwide known classical painters were all mature older men and I just felt like they were untouchable, and that no matter how hard I practiced, there was no way I could ever master oil painting the way that they could. So just even from an early exposure to art and art history, oil painting to me seemed like it was only reserved for people who would be exceptionally good at it, or people who've had decades of practice. And furthering the stereotype that oil paint is only suitable for mature adults was the experience I had with oil painting in schools, or should I say lack thereof. I understand that oil paint obviously is a lot harder to clean and to learn how to use than something like crayons or colored pencils, especially for younger children. I'm not saying I expect public schools to offer oil paint or oil painting classes to, elementary schoolers or even middle schoolers, but growing up, when your only exposure to art as a young child is through these classroom experiences, you start to develop this familiarity and comfort with the mediums that you're more commonly used to practicing with, which end up being dry mediums such as crayons, colored pencils, graphite pencils. And even when you start painting for the first time, I remember as a child, the first paints I was ever exposed to were watercolors and acrylics. Therefore, for the young artists who really take to art and really start developing that passion for it and start trying it outside of the classroom environment, of course, we all tend to gravitate towards the medium that we're already familiar with through our school experiences. So I remember when I first started picking up art as a hobby outside of school, I of course felt the safest doing pencil drawings or watercolor paintings. I never thought oil painting was something that, again, I would ever be able to master, and it just seemed like this difficult, out of reach, unattainable medium. And of course, like many lucky people in my generation or who have been alive during this time, we were all lucky enough to be around when Bob Ross and his The Joy of Painting show was popular on American television. And Bob Ross was the only modern artist at the time that I had ever known or heard of who made oil painting seem easy and accessible to the masses. And I remember being so excited. I was like probably 12 or 13, and my dad got me some Bob Ross oil paints and a Bob Ross VHS tutorial tape. Yes, back then we still used VCRs. And I remember just even trying it for the first time, I was so discouraged. I just couldn't understand how to use it. I mean, he makes it look so easy, but for some reason as a young kid, and now looking back, I know it's because of just simply my lack of practice, I was just so discouraged every time I failed. And so I kind of gave up oil painting for a few years and went back to just colored pencils, watercolors, inks, because oil painting, again, it just kind of reaffirmed this already present fear and prejudice inside of me that no matter what, I was not good enough, I was not meant to use this medium. And of course, over the years, now that I've actually taken the time to really practice and let myself improve at oils, it's now become the medium that I'm most familiar with and the easiest and most straightforward medium for me to use. In fact, I now find myself struggling with things like colored pencils or watercolors because I haven't touched those in years and I just forgot how to use them. Oil painting is like any medium. The more you practice with it, the easier it becomes. I don't think it's by nature inherently more difficult than any medium. The only difference is the amount of time and energy the artist decides to put into mastering it. And I think because oil painting starts off with this intimidating image, a lot of us, myself included, write it off before we even give it a chance. And even if we're willing to overlook the intimidation factor or the tedious, slow drying time or the perceived difficulty of using the medium, there's also the price point that intimidates us into trying oils. Oil paints are known to be expensive. People who do oil paintings are known to require a lot more art supplies than just, say, a pencil or paper. You have to not only have the paints, you have to have a surface to paint on, like a canvas. You have to have an easel, a paint thinner, a medium, a palette. There are so many little things that when we think about it, especially for those of us who've never tried oils, it just seems like such an overwhelming load of stress that we just give up. And frankly, I think if you're starting off with oils and you just are trying to get a feel for it, you don't need all those fancy art supplies. In my opinion, I think the only three must-haves for oil painting is your paints, your brushes, and some sort of paint thinner. Instead of an easel, for example, you could just lean your canvas against the wall or paint on your desk. Instead of using a fancy canvas or wood panel, did you know you could actually paint on paper? And instead of a palette, you can use like any sheet of glass from an old picture frame or even a paper plate. There are so many ways to cut costs with oil paints, especially if you're starting out and just looking to practice. You don't need to buy the fanciest, most expensive, artist-grade quality art supplies. And you'll find that the affordable student-grade options for oil paints do compare to the studio-grade quality options for acrylics and watercolors as well. In fact, even in the artist-grade tier, oil paints are not necessarily more expensive than other mediums. For example, the other day I was just at my local art store and I saw an 18 by 24 inch sheet of really fine artist grade watercolor paper that was priced at around $23.99. And then I went over to the premier artist grade canvas section and I saw an 18 by 24 canvas being sold for only $18.99. So this just goes to show that oil paint is not always more expensive than other mediums, nor is it more toxic than other mediums. Of course, I will probably reserve that for a separate video because that is a whole new can of worms. And there are always options to reduce cost and reduce complexity if you're looking to try oils. One of the main goals I hope to accomplish with this YouTube channel is to make oil paints feel more accessible and less intimidating for all of my viewers. I want to make sure that everyone I come across knows just how amazing this medium is and doesn't feel afraid to try it. So this will definitely not be the only video I'm making on this topic. In fact, if you guys have any questions or have any suggestions on how I can help overcome your fears or your intimidations about oil painting, please let me know. I would love to answer some of your questions and hopefully bring oil painting into the lives of so many more artists. And that about wraps up today's video. I hope you guys enjoyed watching this painting process. I'll also have prints of this piece available at my shop at happyd-artist.com. And don't forget, there's a 20% off sale as well. And if you're interested in following some of my daily updates, more work in progress photos, and just some overall random artist studio life shots, feel free to give me a follow on Instagram. My handle is @happydartist. And also, for around the price of a cup of coffee each month, you can access my Patreon page that has so much more exclusive content helpful for learning how to draw and paint. And I also have many exclusive Patreon-only tutorial videos, such as how to paint noses, how to paint flowers and backgrounds, and so much more. Check it out at patreon.com/happydartist. Thank you guys so much for watching. Have an awesome Thanksgiving holiday, and I hope to catch you in the next one. Bye!